Hi guys, how are you all? This is FJ What If? Today we are going to discuss about what if Naruto was Madara's student part 12. Before start the episode, please like and subscribe my channel. Chapter 12, Mentors and Students. How was he going to get out of this one? Currently the blonde was trapped between two people who he knew from his terror-stricken past. Drea, one of the Sannin and the Toad Sage of Myobakuzen. The strongest of the Sannin and his former mentor. And Konohamaru Sarutobi, the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. During his time as his mask, Konohamaru idolized him and thought of him as a big brother figure. For a time the two had a teacher and student brotherly relationship, and Naruto passed on knowledge and ideals that would be engraved into the young boy. Whether these ideals and teachings passed on to Konohamaru in later years is still unknown. He was in a precarious situation. Without his mask to obscure his face, or his chakra cloak to belie his chakra. Drea and Konohamaru would recognize him instantly, or at least take some time to deduce who he was. Since he lacked his whisker marks, he looked like the clone of the Yondaime, only with subtle differences that he inherited from his mother, such as his eyes were rounder, but yet narrow, and his face was more roundish than his father's, but his chin was more narrow than his mother's, and his hair was slightly less spiky but still the same golden color. He currently had a genjutsu over his eyes masking the Sharingan so no one would freak out, since there were only 5 people in the world to have that eye. Their color was currently sea green, almost bordering on blue. However, the blonde hair would be the biggest giveaway if someone were to point it out. He knew that if he made any quick and intense movements, it would surely attract the attention of Drea and Konohamaru. If he used his invisibility jutsu, then it would only cause more trouble, since the two would catch on, or see him become invisible. If he was too slow, it would have the same effects. It would draw their attention, as they may think he was retarded. Right now a small layer of steam was coating the onsen, blocking the view, but only for how long till it clears, and he is revealed to be frank. If his hair wasn't spiky, then it wouldn't matter, since Deidara had similar colored hair. But knowing that Drea and Konohamaru were fools when it came to genjutsu, he would have to cast a double-layered genjutsu over himself and a genjutsu on the two idiots. Using his talent with genjutsu, Naruto weaved hand seals underneath the steaming water and discreetly placed the two morons under a genjutsu. Then he used his Sharingan by utilizing his reflection in the water to cast a genjutsu on himself, producing a double-layered genjutsu over himself just for added incentive. The Sharingan required direct eye contact to place someone under a genjutsu, and if he did make eye contact, it would give away who he was. The last thing he needed was Konohagakure after his head or hounding him while he continued his plans. The ants of the Lee village were tenacious when it came to meddling in others' plans, and they had near the determination of pit bulls, a breed of dog. He also knew that Drea was Kanin's former teacher from Zetsu, who watched over Madara's investment Nagato and his Rinnegan. And if Drea discovered that Konan was a member of the Akatsuki, then he would oust him as a member, too, without knowing his identity. The genjutsu placed over him changed Naruto's appearance from his blonde hair to jet black silky hair, which was currently riddled with droplets of water. His skin tone became more tanned, almost a bronze color, while his eyes were now a deep empty gray. He wondered if it was enough to fool the white-haired pervert. He doubted it, but it would buy him some time to make a realistic exit from the onsen, which was in actuality an escape from the two Konoha. If the village discovered he was alive and the one that killed Shinoabarame, then the village would make him his prisoner, indoctrinate him with their near-fanatical ideal, the will of fire. Or they would send countless assassins gunning for his head, where they would be praised for truly killing the demon. "Ah, this is the life," spoke Drea as he nested himself into the water. He remembered taking Naruto to a hot spring, such as this one. They even allowed mixed bathing at that hot spring, but right now he couldn't think about such a thing. Opening old wounds would only hurt him more. He was so guilty. He scolded Kakashi all those years ago when he himself was no better. The least he could have done was show up in Naruto's life and telling him that he was his godfather. It would have brought comfort to the blonde to know that there were people who were family to him. And Naruto's living relative was also guilty over the fact that they weren't there for the blonde boy. It would have made Naruto's life much easier to know that he did have family that loved him. But they were too enthralled with their own problems to care that a child was suffering, alone, and denied everything that he needed. If only there was a way to go back and change all that. No, it was impossible. Naruto was dead. That was a fact, and nothing could bring him back. He had promised his student and his wife that he would look out for the boy. But he didn't, did he? He was too busy peeking on women to notice. When he looked back on his life, It was filled with so many mistakes. That's all he had ever done. Make mistakes. Continually rejected by Tsunade, unable to save his best friend from a dark path, unable to spare the 3 orphans he trained from death, not being family to his only family, unable to save his teacher, the Sandime, or his student, the Yondime, unable to save Naruto from his own best friend. If Drea were to describe himself, he was a failure. The only thing he did do right was training his disciples where they would die before him he could. That's all he ever was good at. Turning his head to the right to look at Konohamaru. The old man was training the brat since he owed Sarutobi, and Tsunade had dumped the, as she dubbed him, monkey brat on him. The Sannin wondered as he could do things right with this student. Maybe he could fulfill Naruto's dream of being Hokage. Besides, would people approve of such a thing? Deciding not to ponder it, Drea just eased himself back into the water. However, there were a few good-looking men in the onsen, but there was to his right that caught his eye. He had black hair and gray eyes, along with tan skin which shined like bronze. Maybe he could add this person into his future books. Also, the man had perfectly shining and soft hair. He wondered how someone could get such a skin tone and such a toned body. Was this guy a male model? Drea scooted a little over to the man so to extract the secrets from him. Naruto, sensing Drea's chakra signature etching itself closer to his own, out his body on alert and ready to attack. If someone saw, he would say it was in self-defense. But former mentor or not, he would kill Drea if he got in his way. Hey Mr. greeted Drea, happily unaware and ignorant over who he was talking to. Naruto, putting on an act, decided to play the part of a simple man without expertise with shinobi knowledge or history. Yes. Spoke Naruto with fake happiness and a small smile, which hid the true blank expression. Tell me. How did you get your hair so soft and shiny? Asked Drea as he raked his fingers through the strands on Naruto's shoulders. Do you have some kind of secret shampoo and conditioner to get it so perfect? I don't use shampoo or conditioner, it's all natural. Replied Naruto, and it was true, his hair was naturally soft and shiny. Drea became slack-jawed at what the man said. How could hair such as his be so flawless? The white-haired man was hoping to use the secret to seduce Tsunade with such hair. Well then, tell me how you got such a perfect tan. Continued Drea as he was grinning like a small child. Well, said Naruto, who paused, trying to come up with a perfect excuse to convince Drea. He had to be quick, however, as Drea might see through the genjutsus placed on him and Naruto. I just fell asleep on a beach and woke up like this. Drea, however, was awed with such a thing and how simple it was to get such perfect skin. Konohamaru. We're going to the beach. Yelled Drea at his young apprentice, eager to use the man's strategy for such a thing. Why do you want to go the beach, Ero-sensei? If you want to go to a beach, then head to Suna. Shouted / replied Konohamaru. Why would they do to a beach? If it was to train, then great, but still, why? Because I want to get a tan. One as awesome as this one. Replied Drea as he pointed at Naruto's genjutsu tan. Why would you get something so stupid? If it's just to impress girls, then you're sorely mistaken. No one likes tans these days. Said Konohamaru, basing his belief on his own opinion, which would get him in more trouble than he's worth. You're right, I do want a tan to impress girls, to impress them more with my manliness. Roared Drea as he fell into one of his stupid poses, which made the young Sarutobi sweat drop at such a thing. Naruto inwardly sighed. The old pervert never changed, no matter how much time passed or who died. He needed to leave the place soon. And he had to somehow contact Konan, though. If he went to the women's onsen, the most likely scenario would be him losing a very precious friend of his. He could use the Kamionaneo, Tenrai Yanajai Seijun, Kamionaneo, Divine Willow's Purity, to create perfect copies of himself mirroring his power and intelligence. He could do that, but it could also draw attention. The best option right now was to let everything play out, drag the act out as discreetly as possible. So what brought you to this humble abode, my good sir? Asked Drea innocently. Naruto's subtlety narrowed his eyes, almost believing that Drea had a hidden agenda. Well, I'm a traveling merchant that specializes in jewelry. I just recently had a prosperous sale back in the Land of Wind. Spoke Naruto, coming up with the perfect excuse as men weren't really interested in jewelry. Oh cool, lucky you got out of there since the Land of Wind has been having trouble, not that long ago. Spoke Konohamaru as he huddled over to Naruto's position, which made Naruto's eyebrow tick in annoyance at the close proximity. But there was something strange, something unexplainable. Naruto, for some unknown reason, felt a sort of resonance, calling out to him, almost as if he was calling out to himself. He didn't know what it was. It felt surreal, sort of euphoric. Whatever it was, it felt like Naruto's entire soul was being pulled towards something of his dreams. At the same time, a flash of pain ran through Konohamaru's body, and he held his head slightly, trying to dampen the pain. Konohamaru had no idea what it was. One second he was completely fine and the next he felt this intense pain. He didn't know what it was about, but there was something not right. Really, I hadn't heard, replied the genjutsu'd blonde, still coming to terms with this resonance. Now he could say he was surrounded by idiots. One a pervert and the other a clueless baboon. The two Konoha nins were making it easy for him. Well, at least Rhea wouldn't be perving on Conan anytime soon. He slightly wondered if she was enjoying herself. It didn't matter right now, he needed to escape. When he was broken from his thoughts about the two ninja with him arguing about something which seemed trivial from his point of view, believing that the two shinobi weren't going to leave anytime soon, he decided to indulge then and unearth their true intentions, but more specifically, he wanted to know what Konohamaru's dream and ideals were. Was he like him? He could sense deep hatred within the boy, clouded by feelings of admiration and a goal. A goal to achieve something great. So what are two people like you doing here? Asked Naruto, feigning curiousness. Oh, we came here after an intense day of training and combative missions, replied Konohamaru, who bragged a little, eager to impress this person. Really? What are you training for? Questioned Naruto blankly. If someone didn't have a purpose, would they grow any stronger if they had nothing motivating them? That's easy, said Konohamaru, who scratched his nose a little. To be Hokage. Naruto slightly raised his eyebrow at this, and through half-lidded eyes he could perceive that Konohamaru was indeed telling the truth. He remembered the time when he was shouting on the streets how he would be Hokage. Something which seemed like an impossible dream to anybody else. And why do you want to be Hokage? Pressed Naruto, still keeping his slightly bored expression. Anyone who dreamed of being Hokage always had something to prove to others, something to prove to themselves. His drive to be Hokage was to prove that he existed and that he wasn't a nobody. He wanted the villagers to look at him with praising and loving eyes, not the ones filled with hatred and emptiness. He wanted to wear the funny hat that the old man wore. Sarutobi taught him a lesson long ago. That the Hokage must treat the villagers as if they were their own family, and that every house would be his house and the shinobi his arm and order. If he truly was a great Hokage, then Hiruzen wouldn't have died. A Hokage would be forced to make decisions and perform actions that he would not like, but will be best for the village. Maybe he was right, maybe he was just an old fool. Didn't matter now. Well, at first I wanted to be Hokage. So to make everyone know that I was Konohamaru Sarutobi and not the honorable grandson of the Sandaime Hokage. No one recognized me for me. It was infuriating. That's why I wanted the seat of Hokage instantly, so to make them know who I was. Spoke Konohamaru, to which Naruto wasn't surprised about. At least people looked at him without hatred or contempt. But when I look back at it now, I didn't know the first thing about being Hokage, confessed Konohamaru. Not until he came. Continued Konohamaru, talking about someone who was like a mentor and an older brother to him. Who? Whispered Ryu. Naruto Uzumaki, the son of the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto himself expected that answer, although he did have the urge to kill the Yondaime right now, but since he was already dead it couldn't happen, so he sated his desire to kill and decided to listen to the Sarutobi. I used to believe that there were shortcuts to being Hokage, but he taught me differently, that the Hokage title was something to be earned, not taken by will. That only through hard work and perseverance that someone could be Hokage. He also taught me that through determination to never give up and endure, no matter how hard you experience pain, that you can become greater than you could ever be. We later became rivals for the Hokage seat. And that when we were ready we would fight for Hokage. That was my goal, to be greater than him. And when I walked down the path, I couldn't choose to run away or turn back, to push on, and someday he would be at the end of the path, waiting for me. He sounds like a wise person, falsely complimented Naruto to himself. He could never believe that his mask would have such an adverse effect on Konohamaru, but the young Sarutobi was wrong. Hatred was power, and then there was true power, which was nothingness. Power is created from nothing, it fills up the nothing when it exists. Nothingness is the source of everything. Because everything came from nothing. And everything would return to its original state, which was nothing, where it would become something else. Was a wise person, corrected Konohamaru. Naruto was dead and Konohamaru had sworn that he would fulfill Naruto's promise to Sakura and bring Sasuke back to the village. In relatively one piece. Jiraiya, who was listening to their conversation, had a pained expression. And Konohamaru was right, Naruto had the potential to be the greatest Hokage the village ever had, even greater than the previous ones. Naruto should have become Hokage, he should have had a family with someone he loved and would someday pass on the hat to someone worthy of it. Naruto taught the teachings to Konohamaru that Jiraiya couldn't. He always had that unique charisma to influence the people around him and the power to change people with words and change them for the better. Like Zabuza and Haku, Gaara the Kazekage and Swan, he even changed Konohamaru. He didn't require much time or words to make friends with just about everyone around him, deep-lasting friendships which could be felt to this day. He had the power to change the world with words. He could make enemies his allies just by being in his presence. And to Jiraiya that was the greatest power in the world. So you wished to become Hokage because this Naruto Uzumaki was driving you to achieve the title, but now that he's dead, why do you seek to be Hokage? Questioned Ryu, which actually made Konohamaru think about it. Why was he trying to be Hokage? What purpose did he have to chase his dream? I want to be Hokage, spoke Konohamaru, but he couldn't find the reason why he wanted to be Hokage. It was there on his tongue, his reason, but yet it would escape him. I don't know why I want to be Hokage. I don't know why, confessed Konohamaru. It's true, ever since Naruto died he just wanted to become stronger to continue his legacy, but not for becoming Hokage. Interesting. I'm guessing that this Naruto Uzumaki was close to you, stated Naruto. To which Konohamaru nodded, confirming what the blonde believed. Allow me to give you some advice. Konohamaru looked at Naruto with complete focus. Forget him, whispered Naruto. What? Questioned Konohamaru, not fully understanding the question. If you care about him, forget him. It will only hurt you more, said Naruto emotionlessly. If you follow his legacy or cling to his memory, you will only experience more pain. He's dead, he shall remain dead. Shut up, you don't know him, shouted Konohamaru, whose face was contorted with animosity at what Naruto was saying. If you gain power for his sake, it will hurt you. What does your power mean to him if he's dead? He can't use your power? Nor can he gain power. Naruto Uzumaki is a nobody. His face and being will turn to dust, and his memory will be engraved onto a headstone of an empty grave, lectured Naruto. Naruto eased himself out of the water and wrapped a towel around his body and left for the men's lockers. If you let go of the past, you won't suffer. If you move on from the pain, you shall be set free like a bird in the sky. Konohamaru still had the angry look, which was currently directed at the back of Naruto's skull's glaring, boring holes into his being. Jiraiya, who had been listening, he in more pain, saying something was easier than doing something. And you could hardly forget the blonde ball of joy. Naruto, who changed into his clothes, prepared to leave. However, he rolled up his cloak's black sleeve and bit into his arm, drawing blood where it trickled down his arm. He slammed his hand onto the ground and summoned a bat with big eyes and large fangs, and from his wrist seal summoned ink and a pen and quickly wrote down a message for Konan. Go and deliver this message quickly, ordered Naruto, to which the small flying mammal departed, squeaking loudly through the halls and avoiding the maids and servants. Konan, who was currently enjoying the onsen along with the other members of her gender. At the moment nothing could affect her. Ryu wasn't being a pervert. The hot water eased her muscles. Yep, nothing could bother her. She then felt something furry land on her shoulder. Deciding not to panic, she turned her head slowly to see a bat on her shoulder, squeaking a little loudly. Tied to the bat's leg was a note with her name on it. Knowing only one person who could summon bats, Konan untied the note from the bat's leg, which exploded in a plume of smoke, returning to its home. The note only had 3 words on it, and it was hastily written, almost near unreadable. It said, "Run. Enemy. Here." Konan widened her eyes at the note and searched around her, only seeing naked women. But looks were deceiving. Konan crumpled the note and subtlety left for the women's lockers, where her clothes and weapons sealed in scrolls were. She quickly got dressed and left the onsens, where she found Ryu wearing his black cloak. You need to leave, stated Naruto. Why do I have to leave? Questioned Konan sharply. Because you carry something within you that is so powerful, it could destroy an entire nation if allowed to, responded Naruto, who had his eternal Mangekyo activated. He made a single hand seal, and the wolf Koinyu's puppy had sprouted from Kanen's mouth, who gagged a little at the event. The wolf's right eye were outlet red with the Mangekyo Sharingan of 3 sides curving around a pupil. A blue mandala sprouted from behind Konan where the kanji for vermilion appeared, and the Suzaku burst forth from its prison where it landed next to Konan. Koinu retreated back into Konan's stomach, who was coughing a little at the experience. Naruto hefted Konan and lifted her up by her arms and plopped her onto the red bird. Those eyes hunger for death and yearn for war. You must protect them, spoke Naruto. And he was right. By Konan holding on to the eyes, she was effectively protecting the world from the destruction that would be wrought by the 7 techniques of the Kamionaneo. Fly to Amigakure. You'll be safe there. Don't think that I'm a weak woman, spoke Konan as she hated the stereotype that women were weak, and not as strong as men. I've never thought of you as a weak woman who can't defend yourself. But those eyes, my eyes, have to be kept safe. I can't trust anyone other than you. That's why I've left them with you, spoke Naruto, making Konan widen her eyes. Naruto grabbed her arm. I'll be fine, spoke Naruto, and with a mental command made the Suzaku fly towards Amigakure, where she would be safe from the Konoha nin. He pulled up the hood to his cloak, ready to make his escape. But he could sense the chakra of Drea standing behind him. You know, you Akatsuki are hard to find, but to run into you here is truly ironic, spoke Drea as he stared at the back of Naruto's cloak. I wonder where your partner is. Must have run off, spoke the deadly serious Drea as he glared at the hooded Akatsuki member. He had noticed seals transcribed on a black cloak resting on in the men's lockers. Although the seals were too complicated for him to understand, Drea, being a seal master, could instantly see that they were powerful. Not only that, Naruto always kept a spare Akatsuki cloak in case he ever lost the other one. It was Naruto's readiness that ultimately revealed who he was. Talk about rookie mistake. Drea had been able to recognize the genjutsu placed over the man, and he tried to dispel only to find another genjutsu over the Akatsuki member who was intent on keeping his identity a secret. Naruto silently cursed Madara. Fuck you, you old goat. You're the one that said that a prepared person will, maybe, not be a dead person. Naruto silently unsealed some flashbangs from his wrist seal and readied himself to attack Drea. Get ready to taste my fist, yelled a high-pitched voice which came from Konohamaru, launching himself at Ryu. Naruto, looking back over his shoulder, saw Konohamaru rushing at him with his fist cocked back and ready to strike him. However, to Naruto, Konohamaru was as slow as a slug, and his Sharingan could perceive his next attack. Naruto in response performed a tornado kick that impacted against Konohamaru's face, where a loud crack was heard as Naruto shattered and dislodged several of Konohamaru's teeth, which in turn caused the young Saratobi's eyes to go wide and several strands of spit to be launched from his mouth. Drea, utterly flabbergasted at the idiocy of Konohamaru, he had to bear witness to his disciple being defeated with a single hit, a simple kick. Kanakamaru was knocked unconscious as his face hit the dirt, and the point of impact of Naruto's boot was left to smolder and go red. Naruto mused that he didn't kick Konohamaru that hard. Naruto, using the flashbangs in his hand, smashed them against the floor, where Drea covered his eyes from the blinding light and the ringing sound. When he looked back at Ryu, he found him gone and running into the forest. So Drea, being the man he was created, a shadow clone to guard Konohamaru as he chased after the Akatsuki member. After a few minutes of a quick chase, Drea and Naruto, not using his chakra to speed up his movements, had finally caught up to the man as he grabbed the Naruto shoulder, where he threw him back quite a distance. Naruto, in quick response, angled himself in the air, where he landed on the trunk of a tree, and redirecting the moment, Naruto launched himself against the tree, where he flew at Drea, destroying the tree in the process. He aimed a punch at Drea's face, but the Sannin caught his fist and tried to slam him against the ground, but when he tried, Ryu landed on his feet and kicked Drea's knee, which caused the Sannin to stumble, where Naruto followed up with a knee strike to the face, which made Drea roll across the ground and grimace slightly in pain. Naruto followed after Drea and attempted to continue his assault. Drea, recovering from Rya's attacks, positioned himself in a defensive stance, ready to counter the hooded man if necessary. Naruto had dispelled the genjutsu over his body and quickly unsealed his skull mask and placed it over his face, obscuring it from view. Drea raised his eyebrow at this but decided not to ponder it. Drea raced forward at his opponent and performed a flying kick, ready to hit the masked man. Naruto ducked underneath it and tried to hit Drea in a place that was every man's weakness. Drea, however, flipped in midair and caught the man's arm with flexibility Naruto wasn't aware he had. Drea, who had caught Naruto's arm, landed on the ground and attempted to slam the Akatsuki against the ground. However, he was unsuccessful, as Naruto landed on his 2 feet and instead threw the Sannin over his shoulder and at a tree, which Drea smacked against, making a large dent in the wood, and landed on the ground roughly. Drea gritted his teeth at the man, but he finally knew why he was losing in the taijutsu battle. He could see Sharingan eyes staring at him blankly through the holes in the mask. No wonder. This was either Ryu, Yosuke's or Itachi Uchiha, although he had the feeling it was the former. With the Sharingan predicting his movements, there was no way Drea could win against him with just taijutsu. He knew that genjutsu would be pointless since the Sharingan could see chakra and see through genjutsu except for senjutsu, enhanced genjutsu or other Sharingan genjutsu. So there was no other alternative, it would have to be ninjutsu. Drea, from his many experiences in combat and warfare, knew that Ryu Yosuke's was faster than he was. And from his lessons from the Sandaime regarding shinobi, such as this, he would have to restrict his movements. Knowing Earth Release would be most effective against Yosuke's and that he was a natural lightning release user, Drea would have to use mud-based techniques to capture and ensnare his opponent, where he would be near defenseless, but the fact is that he would have to capture Yosuke's for that to work. He would have to expend lots of chakra to get the Akatsuki member in place, but if it worked they would have valuable intel on the Akatsuki's motives, base and their movements. Drea, using a single hand seal, prepared to use a earth jutsu to keep Ryu on the run and moving while he prepared the trap. Doten, Doryaso, Earth Release, Earth Flow spears a Drea as he slammed his hands down on the ground, moving the earth to its will like a servant, obeying their master. Naruto, sensing something rising from beneath him, stepped back a little before a rock spike shooting out of the ground could skewer him. He jumped into the air when another earth spike rocketed from the ground. It was like a game of cat and mouse at the moment, with Naruto dodging the earth spikes while they chased after him, puncturing the ground. Drea, knowing that this was his chance, prepared another Doten jutsu so to ensnare the Akatsuki member. Doten, Yomi Numa Earth Release, Swamp of the Underworld, spoke Drea, and as Ryu landed on the ground from avoiding another earth spike, he felt his left leg being encased with this mushy substance. He looked down with his Sharingan eyes and perceived mud swallowing up his leg like food. His right leg wasn't free from it either, as it too was swallowed up by the mud. He felt himself sinking into the mud, and he knew that if he struggled he would only be wasting energy. The blonde started going through hand seals to escape the mud, knowing that he couldn't escape with taijutsu. And there were weakness to the Kamionaneo, as depending on the jutsu, each one can only be used a few times per day, some only once, such as the Kuminju no Yuki, 9 masked beasts of valor. He then felt more chakra being poured into the earth, and he beheld a gaping maw made of earth, ready to crush him like an insect. Doten, Chikuo Musabori, Earth Release, Devouring Earth, said Drea as he watched the giant earth maw ready to pulverize the man. He held back on this technique since he needed Ryu alive, or at least that's what he wanted at the moment. But this was a good chance at the moment. Naruto stopped the hand seals for the jutsu he was going to use in favor of another one, which was needed more. He went through new hand seals and, molding his chakra for it, prepared a Reitan jutsu. Reitan, Kaminari Yashi, Lightning Release, Thunder Palm, yelled Naruto as he gathered chakra to the palms of his hand, and as the earth maws were about to close in on him, arcs of various streaking lightning bolts shot forth from Naruto's palms, which traveled through the earth and broke it apart. Drea knew that this fight wasn't going to be easy. He guessed the reports and rumors surrounding Ryu were accurate. He does have natures to fire and lightning. Drea was counting his graces, knowing that Yosuke's didn't have an affinity to water, since lightning and water were Drea's weakness, well, and perhaps women and their features. Maybe the fight would be over if Naruto used his Warok no Jutsu, sexy technique. Maybe he could use the more powerful version, which was able to defeat Madara. Naruto had created an improved version of the Ororok no Jutsu in order to prank Madara. That was one of his favorite pastimes, since the old Uchiha easily fell victim to all of Naruto's pranks. Even when he used the Reitan, Kaminari to Inazuma no Keiken no Chohimitsu no Shin no Kyokado no Atami wa ni Tokikuken to Akugijutsu no Shuryo Meidai ni Kyoku Suru, Lightning Release, Super Secret True Extreme Pain of Thunder and Lightning Experience to forever memorize for all eternity until the end of time, space and the universe technique. The humor it brought Naruto could not be measured, especially when he recalled Madara flopping around like a fish on land when he was being shocked. And it turns out, the old Uchiha was a pervert, since nearly every time he fell victim to Naruto's Warok no Jutsu the first time, it didn't work since Madara claimed he was above such jutsu, but he was defeated with the greatest jutsu known to all men. Haramu no Jutsu, Harem Jutsu. The old goat almost died of blood loss when Naruto tried it on him. Old perverted goat. Naruto performed some more hand seals and held out his hand at Drea. Reitan, Hekar Kirayan Shouchia, Lightning Release, Thunder Lion Shockwave, yelled Naruto as he made a swirling vortex of lightning with a lion's head in the middle, which was aimed at Drea and traveling at tremendous speed. Drea barely had time to duck and roll away from the lightning given the amount of experience he had in battle. However, some of the lightning grazed his arm, and even from the small contact it was able to completely numb his arm, causing it to be useless. The Sannin gritted his teeth at his enemy. Even when he was waist-length in mud, he was still formidable. Now that his arm was useless, Drea would have to rely on one-handed seals too, which he wasn't good at, but he had a sound knowledge of one-handed seals that he could use them sometimes in battle. But he wondered, would it be enough? Using an easy jutsu that didn't require many hand seals, but was strong enough to defeat his opponent. Katan, Gowan no Jutsu, Fire Release, Great Flame Jutsu, spoke Drea as he expelled a large stream of flame from his mouth, which was aimed at Ryu, who was still stuck in the mud. In retaliation, Naruto performed the same jutsu where it clashed with Drea's own flames. Naruto, knowing he needed to escape the mud, he came up with a devious plan to escape, and right now Drea's and his own flames would help. Naruto eased down the level of the flames, allowing Drea's own to overpower his until the flames were near his location. Of course he would feel the heat, but it was worth it as he was starting to see the effects of such a thing happening. The mud around him was starting to become solid, because any liquid in the moist earth was being dried up from the heat of the fire, and he was sweating, but if it meant escape he would endure it. The mud around him was cracking and shattering apart. He could feel his legs moving around underneath the mud. When he felt that the mud was now mere dirt, he would break free. Okay, now he could move, so he just pumped more chakra into his own jutsu, which overpowered Drea's and turning the Toad Sage's own technique against him. Drea was overwhelmed by the fire and was devoured by the blaze. Naruto cancelled his jutsu and looked back at the now burning remains of his former mentor. Someone who he had no love for. He didn't care, besides he had just taken away a might asset for Konoha. He eased himself out of the crusty ground, but he could sense something wrong. The flaming mess in his vision. The flames were actually burning a log, which Drea had replaced himself with. Expanding his senses in order to find his former teacher. Naruto focused on his sensing, but what astonished him was that Drea's chakra signature was behind him. Naruto turned his masked head to see Drea ready to slug him across the face with his one good arm. Even in his mid-50s, Drea was still a deadly and dangerous opponent that should never be underestimated. Naruto knew that the first time he met the guy, no matter how hard, it was to tell himself that the man before him was strong. Drea believed he had this fight's victory in his grasp. His fist inched closer and closer, ready to hit Ryu, but instead he felt something cold and metallic pierce his chest. Drea looked down to see a black blade, carving its way into his chest. It was directly under his rib cage, and he should consider himself lucky he wasn't pierced in the heart. However, new problems arose considering there was a sword in his chest. He coughed up blood and his breath and breathing became ragged. He should have known about Yokaze's sealing abilities. The man literally had a trick up his sleeve. Drea fell to his knees and coughed up some more blood. He wasn't in the best shape as he had taken a few hits from Yokaze's taijutsu and being slammed into a tree and losing control in his left arm. Naruto pulled out his sword, the Tonbagari no Tsurugi, from Drea's chest, who coughed as blood oozed out of his wound in his torso. He looked up to see Ryu preparing to slash him vertically, where he would most likely split Drea's skull in half. But when Drea looked into Yokaze's eyes, he could see nothing but emptiness and a longing for something great and powerful. Drea, in all his years of living, had never seen eyes such as those. They say eyes conveyed one's feelings, but there were no feelings in these eyes. They were empty. Like a voided face waiting to be filled by flowers. Drea had heard rumors of eyes, such as those eyes that had everything taken and denied. Someone who lost everything in a spur of the moment. Whether he lost everything important to him or not was unimportant. There was another rumor surrounding those eyes. Someone who hungered for vengeance, for most of their lives, always waiting to take out their vengeance on those who had gained their ire. But those eyes were windows screaming out to people that the person's vengeance could never be achieved, no matter how hard they tried, or what they did. People with those eyes left the world with nothing to leave behind. Whatever happened to this man was truly scarring if he were to look through those eyes. This man's vengeance could never be achieved as it was forever out of reach. Maybe that's why he joined Akatsuki, so to bestow upon himself a purpose for living, as people with those eyes were usually never found. Drea himself remembered a similar set of sky blue eyes always staring into you. Maybe this was retribution for his failures, his failure for not being what he was supposed to be. A family figure for a suffering child. Naruto tried to savor this moment, killing someone who had wronged and denied him. He wanted to kill this person. Oh yes. He wanted to savor it. However, why did this act taste like iron in his mouth? What he was doing didn't feel right to him, as if now wasn't the time to do it. But if he killed Drea, he would send a message and weaken Konoha. It was the truth that he didn't feel anything for Drea no longer. He wasn't hesitant and he wasn't reluctant either. It almost seemed like he didn't want to do the deed. But why was it so hard? He had killed countless others, broken many families and friendships. Why was it so hard to kill one man when it was so easy to kill him? Then it came to him. The pain he was inflicting on Drea was not the pain he yearned for. The pain inflicted by truth. The truth that everything happening was the blonde's doing. Murder, espionage, crimes and chaos. He wanted Drea to feel the pain knowing that it was him. The person that made the world bleed. However, logic coming over him and knowing that his vengeance could never be attained, Naruto swung his sword down upon Drea's head, ready to finish him. Drea could only watch as the black blade came down on him, cutting the air itself. For the two men, time slowed down as the Tonbagari no Tsurugi was inching itself closer to Drea's skull. The katana had an aura around it where it would cut anything that breaches the aura, so it didn't have to touch you to cut you, making it extremely unpredictable and deadly. Drea closed his eyes and waited for his end to come. Both of their ears twitched and Naruto could sense two chakra signatures hurling themselves at him with inhuman speed. For the smallest second he wondered who they were, but as his blade was about to cut Drea he received his answer, when 2 feet wrapped in orange leg warmers slammed themselves against the left side of his face and a loud, audible crack was heard. Double dynamic entry! Yelled 2 voices to which the feet belonged to. Drea, who was flabbergasted at what happened, only felt his forehead protector fall off his head and a small cut to appear on his forehead where the aura of the blade met his skin. The blonde was vaulted off the ground as his entire body soared through the air and slammed itself against a tree, breaking it in 2, but hit another tree, where he merely cracked the bark. His body slumped against the floor as he lied face first in the ground, contemplating the next course of action. There are only 2 fools in this entire hell of a world that would wear such hideous clothing, and are the only 2 people that would shout out their attack names to the heavens, proclaiming their youth, thought Naruto as he continued to lie on the ground as he remembered the 2 green freaks from his past. There's no doubt in my mind that it's those 2. And they're standing before Drea were Might Guy and Rock Lee in their signature stance of the strong fist, with their palm facing them in the air and their feet together. The 2 green, loudmouth idiots of Konoha. I'm surrounded by idiots, thought Naruto sorrowfully as he picked himself up on the ground. He noticed that his skull mask was cracked and beginning to break, and looked to be unable to stay on his face, and underneath that he had 2 bruises on his left cheek which were shaped like feet. His healing factor was already beginning to heal away the bruises, but he also had a cut on his lip which was leaking blood. He threw the mask away and pulled on his cloak's hood some more to hide away his features. He brushed the blood away with his cloak sleeve and got on his feet and stared simply and blankly at the 2 Konoha nin, who was joined by Neji Hyuga, who was tending to Drea. "Guy, how did you?" asked Drea ruggedly, since he was in pain and losing blood. "We found you, Shadow Clone and Konohamaru, on the road back from a mission. Tenten volunteered to stay behind to tend to Konohamaru, and we are here now, and we'll defeat our foe with the power of our youth," proclaimed Guy in his usual manner of speech, which made Neji and Drea sweat drop at the 2. "Yes, Guy-sensei, we will defeat our foe with the power of our youth through our veins," shouted Lee. "That's right, Lee, shower your youth to the world, and with taijutsu, we will overcome any challenge," spoke Guy as he made the good guy pose, and his teeth shined for a second, which made everyone wonder why he bleached his teeth to get them that white. "Be careful, you 2, he's a member of the Akatsuki, said Drea, trying to warn the 2 comrades. However, everyone was zoned out and didn't hear what Drea had to say. Guy kept staring at Naruto's feet, watching him for any slight movement. However, Neji and Lee's eyes were wide in shock as they recognized the cloak the man was wearing. It was the same one worn by the dancing phantom, the man who killed Shino. "He's," stuttered Neji as last time he faced this person, he nearly lost his life. He was still on suspension, but since Team Guy needed Neji's expertise for their certain mission, he was allowed to be on the mission. I know," said Lee. "He's Ryuyoke's," stated Drea, joining in on the conversation. "Be absolutely careful, he's a predator. Any weakness and he'll kill you," warned Drea darkly, which was uncharacteristic of him. In nature, predators always kill the weak prey, whether it be sick ones, old ones, even babies. They'll kill them because they're weak, and the weak never survive. "Maybe not today," spoke Naruto as he dashed off into the woods, leaving the group of Konoha nin behind. "Let's go, Lee, and fan our flames of youth." yelled Guy as he chased after Naruto with Lee behind him. The green-clad boy knew this time that he will have to activate the 8 gates to defeat his opponent since he was too powerful, and if he didn't he could die. Jiraiya didn't have the time to warn the two who were stuck in their world of youthfulness to not take heed to his warnings. Naruto jumped through the forest to get away from the two fools. However, he could feel their chakra closing in on him. They were faster than Jiraiya, that's for sure. But he needed to lose them, so he could meet up with Conan. He went through hand seals for a jutsu he learned from the Wolf Clan when he was training under them. He learnt a lot of things from the Animal Clan to which he had a natural affinity for when he tried the Kuchiyos no Jutsu, summoning technique, since his contract with the toads were broken. Kurike Jokamaipaku, hunting Shadow Wolf Pack, and around him Naruto released his chakra form, his body which began to take the shape of wolves. These wolves had light gray fur and red eyes, and some patches of their fur were glowing bright blue. Obviously, it was Naruto's chakra, but instead of large bushy tails the wolves' tails were thin and wispy and they fluttered in the air like a leaf. Naruto had his wolves mentally attack Guy and Lee, so to escape them he couldn't be bothered for a fight. He was just minding his own business when this shit happened. Sometimes he didn't know what to do with himself as nothing interested him, other than funding powerful weapons and artifacts. Lee and Guy, who were racing after the Akatsuki member, saw the wolves charging at them. Both performed flying, spinning kicks and were able to defeat some of the wolves, but they raced past the others intent on not letting their enemy escape. Guy felt something latch onto his left leg to see one of the wolves. Biting his leg, he tried to unlatch the wolf from his leg, but was unsuccessful as its jaws were sinking into his flesh. But there was something wrong. He felt drained for a reason. As if his chakra. That's it, the wolves were siphoning his chakra. He turned to look at Lee and he too had a wolf on his body. Guy then looked down to see the wolf on his leg light up blue before both Guy and Lee were engulfed in a blue explosion, which destroyed some parts of the forest they were jumping through. The wolves were made from Naruto's chakra, but they could also absorb the chakra of whoever they cling to a person, and then assimilate their chakra, where they would use their bodies as mediums for the assimilated chakra, where they would release the pent-up energy, causing an explosion of varying size and power depending on how much chakra they stole. Naruto looked back over his shoulder to see a large dust cloud blanketing the area and obscuring his view. He could sense Guy's and Lee's chakra signaling that they were alive, but had, of course, lost chakra because of the wolves. But out of the cloud came Guy and Lee, still chasing after him. Their clothes were singed and both had each lost one of their orange leg warmers, but they were still fine. Naruto sighed at their stubbornness. There really was no way to go about this. He would have to fight again. Maybe he could test out his own signature taijutsu style, which was developed by him and Madara just for the blonde's use. It was a combination of the Uchiha taijutsu style and his own fighting style, creating a style which was very powerful in Madara's eyes, but he would need a professional's opinion, such as Might Guy. Naruto could see up ahead a large field big enough for this, but was also dotted with large boulders, the size of grown men. Besides, he still had plenty of chakra left since he had Biju level reserves and near unsurpassed chakra control. He stopped in the middle of the clearing and waited for his two opponents. Alright, we finally caught up, Lee. Let's show our opponent the might of youthful taijutsu, shouted Guy, slipping into his taijutsu stance. Lee nodded firmly and also slipped into the taijutsu stance. Naruto brought up his hand and both Lee and Guy flinched at the movement, but their fears were not warranted as Naruto just merely pointed at them with his index and middle fingers. Then he turned his fingers and gestured them, almost taunting them, which didn't have any effect on the two shinobi. Not taking any chances, the mentor and the student both raced forward, where they split up with Guy running on ahead in front of Naruto and Lee flanking him from the side. Guy performed a mid-air spinning kick, which Naruto easily blocked. The blonde noted that it wasn't as strong as his first attack was and it lacked the speed it had before. Guy, using Naruto's arm as a springboard, jumped away so Lee to come from the side and strike him across the face. Naruto blocked that too and also noted that it was similar to Guy's attack earlier. They must be testing me, feeling me out so to know how fast I am and how strong my attack's area, and the speed and intensity of my reflex. For Lee, it isn't like last time, just attacking me at random. He now knows how dangerous I am, so therefore he's more cautious, and the fact that he has less allies this time. Guy, being experienced in taijutsu and a jonin for many years, must be experienced at facing such opponents. Never underestimate this man, as he can open all the hachimen, 8 gates, so I assume he will only open 7, and Lee also knows how to open the gates. This will be interesting, thought Naruto as he deduced his enemy's motives and what they were planning. Naruto blocked another attack from Lee and tried to punch him only for Lee to duck under the attack and try to kick Naruto in the chin, but Naruto just softly jumped in the air and dodged the attack. He fluttered his body around so to dodge an attack from Guy, who performed a flying kick in order to hit the blonde man. When Naruto quickly landed on the ground, he was put on the defensive by Lee, who was now taking a more aggressive attack speed. Obviously, from Lee's experience with Naruto, he must know that the Akatsuki member favored fast and aggressive attacks and preferred to dodge rather than block in order to move around his opponents and catch them off guard. Lee attempted the Konoha Rippu Leave Gale, so to cause Naruto to become unbalanced and easy for a hit, Naruto instead slightly jumped in the air and landed on his hand, and using his hand performed a split upside down and to spin around, which in turn caused his feet to smack into Lee's face multiple times. Guy, who was watching, was slightly amazed at the level of agility the Akatsuki agent was showing, as it was difficult to perform splits, especially since the man was performing a handstand and was unaffected by every man's weakness. Naruto got back on his feet and prepared one of his own taijutsu moves. Naruto's taijutsu style was unique as it involved speed, agility and strength, perfect for causing not only external damage but also internal if the user was skilled enough. Naruto's style was called the Bajutaraken, intercepting Tiger Fist. It was a mixture of the Ukazone taijutsu style, which mainly involved the Sharingan for predicting enemy attacks, Bakugan, intercepting fist, and Naruto's own created style, the Toriken, Tiger Fist, which was developed with Madara's tutelage, and he commented on how Naruto was like a tiger using that style, thus garnering its name. The style Bajutaraken used the Sharingan for predicting attacks, and won strength, speed and agility to counter them and attack. But of course the style also had its own devastating attacks using just a person's body. Lee was currently put on the defense now as he tried to hold back Ryu. If Lee was experienced at taijutsu, then he would have trouble keeping up with Naruto's moves. Lee was now backed up against a large boulder as tall and wide as a man, with Naruto ready to strike. Tarahira, Tiger Palm, said Naruto as he palm struck Lee, who was able to dodge it at the last second and thankfully just in time, as Naruto's taijutsu attack shattered at least half of the large boulder and sending the pieces flying in different directions. Dust was kicked up from the impact and Lee was left gaping as a small crater, with cracks sprouting from the center point. Lee scuffled along the ground hoping to get away from Naruto, who was staring at his handiwork. The blonde was currently contemplating the taijutsu he just used. That attack could shatter anyone's ribs, and if they were durable enough, just come back, form it with cracked ribs. You could only imagine what would happen if Naruto hit Lee's face with that jutsu. Ryu turned to Lee and the green boy could see the death-bringing eyes of the Sharingan. Guy-sensei had taught him never to look into those eyes if he was to ever encounter them, but to indeed look at his opponent's feet. He had been training for this, to defeat Sasuke and avenge Naruto, his friend. Naruto was about to make a move on Lee before Guy appeared before him in his stance ready to fight Naruto. The blonde, unafraid of the large eyebrow man, took his own stance. With his left hand in front of the other and the right hand near his chest, with his left leg in front, and the right leg bending where it was. Guy noted that the stance had no weak points and was perfectly balanced for attack and defense. Whoever taught this man must have been good, very good. They both rushed at each other, intending to hit the other, but each time they attack each other, the other would block the other, and their taijutsu was equal in terms of strength and speed. They both launched a punch at the other where they hit each other in the face, which caused Naruto to fall to the ground skidding, and for Guy to skid across the ground but not fall over, obviously Shakasing, who was better at taijutsu in terms of strength. Naruto got off the ground and wiped off the dirt on his cheek. He looked back up to see Lee standing next to his mentor proudly. Guy-sensei was able to hit him, and not only that, for him to lose his balance like that. Our opponent is skilled, thought Lee seriously, which was out of character for him. Lee, I want you to back me up. I'm going to try and get past his defenses, giving you the chance to clobber him, spoke Guy as he kept staring at Rya's feet. Lee nodded at this, since this man was better at taijutsu, at least in skill department. Guy raced forward intending to fight his opponent, while Lee watched adamantly for any signs of a chance to hit Naruto. Naruto and Guy were currently locked in combat as both tried to hit the other or break their defenses. Guy jumped back to perform one of his signature taijutsu attacks. He man-launched himself and prepared to hit Naruto. Konoha Goriki Senpu, leave strong whirlwind, yelled Guy as he performed a spinning back kick where Naruto raised his arms to block it, which also made them go numb from the force. Guy jumped back, tried to punch Naruto, but with his Sharingan predicting the movement, saw the punch, but instead of dodging he used his great speed and placed his open palm on the side of the fist and pushed against it, where it was instead redirected and now aimed for Guy's own face. A crack was heard as Guy's fist impacted against his face. Best way to hurt someone is to hurt themselves was a lesson Madara taught him. And Guy was momentarily dazed, so Naruto followed up with another of his taijutsu techniques. Hyaku Taikoku Torahando, 100 Imperial Tiger Hands, spoke Naruto as he pummeled Guy in front of him with 100 fast-paced punches. Although weaker than Torahira, the number of attacks and their intensity made up for them. Guy could do nothing to defend himself as he was being hammered by many fists. Naruto prepared his last punch, which caused Guy to skid across the ground. The green man was in pain and everything hurt. Naruto looked at his work and it was difficult to overpower Might Guy with taijutsu. How dare you to do that to Guy-sensei? Yelled Lee as he flew in the air ready to kick Naruto, but with his Sharingan predicting the movement, Naruto was able to grab Lee by the leg and slam him onto the ground. Lee, because of his durability, picked himself up, but not in time to defend himself from Naruto's next attack. Kobaku Bibu Kiku, lashing tail kick, yelled Naruto as he attempted a roundhouse kick with his right leg, which hit Lee square in the face and followed up with a spinning back kick with his left, which impacted against the back Lee's head where the Chunin coughed up spit and blood. Naruto kicked Lee in the chin, which sent the boy into the air, and because of the pain from the Kobaku Bibu Kiku, he couldn't really think straight since his mind was dizzy. Naruto performed the cage bio where he appeared behind Lee, matching his movements. He somersaulted in the air and brought his elbow down on Lee's head, but he wasn't done. With amazing timing, Naruto kneed Lee in the back of the head, causing Lee to choke in pain rather than scream. Naruto pivoted his body and kicked Lee on his left side, causing Lee to cough in pain. He pivoted his body again, and performed a spinning back kick on Lee's right, and he watched as the green-clad boy took all of his punishment. Grabbing Lee's shoulder, who was writhing in pain from all the hits done to him and their strength, Naruto heaved his body and grabbed Lee's other shoulder. Naruto brought his right leg up and did an axe kick with his heel, meeting Lee's skull, and a loud crack was heard. The kick was so powerful that Lee was sent plummeting to the ground, where a small dust cloud was created from the impact and a sizable crater. But Naruto wasn't finished, and was instead falling to the ground just like Lee. But instead of meeting the ground, Naruto instead landed on Lee's chest, which made the boy cry out in pain at the feeling of his ribs breaking underneath Rya's feet. The crater just got bigger. Heishi Tora Deshinshin Renden, Fierce Tiger Decimation Combo, said Naruto as he jumped off Lee. Guy could only watch at the brutality of the man's attacks. And that combo was beyond scary, as such a thing would be classified as kinjutsu just for looking at it. However, he had faith that his student will be alright. But still, he had to capture the Akatsuki member. They were his orders form, the Godame Hokage. Shinobi were the cage's sword. So he would have to be one now. But right now he had to think of a way to defeat his opponent. He was near evenly matched in taijutsu, and Guy slightly shuddered to think what his ninjutsu skill was, so he had to make it quick before he used ninjutsu. Did he think he was testing himself against him and Lee? Trying to find the limits of his capabilities? It didn't matter now. Guy would have to resort to the Hachiman to defeat Ryuyoke's, and the Hokage was right. A man trained in every art of combat, and a man trained to be nothing more than a death bringer and love breaker. Guy looked back to Lee crawling from the small crater. Guy had to attack Ryu now, or he might kill Lee before he could set his plan in motion. Elsewhere, Neji was tending to Drea's wounds, and despite not being a medic, he knew enough to perform bandages and minor aid. The Hyuga prodigy was wondering if his sensei and friend were alright. But now was not the time, and he could see with his Byakugan that Tenten was heading to his position with a now conscious Konohamaru. Neji called out Tenten, to which the Hyuga nodded. "Where's Lee and Guy-sensei?" queried Tenten once she came to a halt before Neji and Drea. "They've gone to confront the Akatsuki member that's wounded Drea-sama," replied Neji a bit hastily. Drea meanwhile had labored breathing and was heaving a little, but decided to stay out of the conversation because he suspected Guy would be fine. Even though he may not look at Guy as one of the strongest shinobi in the village and not to be underestimated. Neji, using his Byakugan, began to scout out the area and try to locate Guy and his teammate. But he found them. However, he wasn't relieved. "This is bad," whispered Neji, fearful at what he was seeing. "This is really bad." "What is?" questioned Tenten, who had a bit of fear in her voice. "Tenten Sadie here with Drea-sama," ordered Neji as he ran after Lee and his sensei. Why?" asked Tenten, who was confused and worried for her teammate. "Guy-sensei and Lee are in danger," yelled Neji without turning back, leaving a confused Konohamaru, Drea and Tenten. Guy was currently in battle with Naruto, where he kept having to dodge his Torahira if he didn't want to have all his bones crushed by the simple palm strike. Lee was doing well. Because of his training, Lee had great recuperation and stamina where he would recover quickly like Guy form exhaustion. Naruto decided to up the attacks. In order to defeat Hi-Fo, he instead exerted more power into the Tarahira for the maximum amount of damage it could cause. His taijutsu was so great that the speed his palm strikes were traveling at were in fact condensing the air around his hands, making them take the shape of green tiger heads around his hands with darker green stripes. When he went to hit Guy again with his enhanced version of the Tarahira, Banjin Tarahira, Savage Tiger Palm, said Naruto as he attacked Guy, but instead his palm met the body of a large boulder and unlike last time, it completely shattered the boulder where not even fragments remained after the hit. Guy had to be even more careful and he had to buy time for Lee to recuperate so they could perform their combination jutsu to defeat their opponent. But Guy also had to be careful not to be hit by the Banjin Tarahira, otherwise, he would be dead. Ryuyoke's was unlike any shinobi he had ever met before. Drea was right, if he showed any weakness, like a predator he would attack. Guy jumped away from Naruto when he was about to be struck again by the tiger, or a palm. However, since seeing the action many times, now Guy could deduce that the Tarahira and I's more powerful version could only be used in a linear fashion. It was not effect for sweeping attacks, it was only suitable for jabs. That's what the Kobaku Bibu Kiku was for, since that too could only be used for sweeping attacks. Guy knew he would have to get close to Rya's side while he executed a Tarahira so then his opponent would be near defenseless and could give him the chance to strike. Guy went for it and allowed Naruto to attack him. When the cloaked man attacked Guy with his right palm, the green Jonin strafed to the side and tried to punch the blonde, but Naruto pivoted his left hand to the side and tried to strike him again with the tiger head around his hand. This was what Guy had been waiting for. In a spur of the moment, Guy used his amazing speed to get behind Naruto, who was still attacking. He performed a flying kick which hit Naruto in the back, causing him to skid to the floor and leaving a large track behind. Guy pumped his fist in the air in victory as he had found the taijutsu move's weakness. Naruto was currently lying on the floor thinking about what had just happened. Funnily enough, he allowed Guy to hit him to see if the Tarahira had any weaknesses, and it proved he was right. Naruto had first noticed it while training under Madara, but since white zetsus were weak, they couldn't be able to gauge the jutsu's weakness. He wondered briefly if he should kick things up a notch and use full speed. Because he wasn't punching or palming anything, the tiger heads around his hands dispersed since they weren't reliant on chakra. He picked himself up off the ground and dusted off his cloak. This was proving to be a great test of his abilities, especially against a taijutsu master, such as Guy. He looked over his shoulder to see the green-clad man performing an over-exaggerated victory dance complete with a god-awful pose to boot. He turned to face the man who was still busy performing the victory dance. Whether for Naruto's amusement or just because was still unknown at this time. But still, you shouldn't celebrate too soon. Guy saw the Akatsuki member get off the ground and immediately fell into his taijutsu. Stanley was still recovering, so he needed more time. Before Guy could blink, Naruto disappeared from his sight, and he felt something hard impact his face, then his back, a strike on his collarbone, his stomach and his side, and on his neck and forehead all he could see was a blur. Then he saw Ryu right under him where he was struck hard by the normal Tarahira. The assault was too much for Guy as he was propelled off his feet where his body crashed into a boulder where it broke from the force and creating a dust cloud. Naruto stood there and kept watching for any signs of Guy. And lo and behold, when the dust cloud dispersed, all it revealed was a broken log and a broken boulder. Even when he used the taijutsu combo, it still wasn't effective. Though he did get in some good hits with the assistance of another of his taijutsu techniques. The Toriyakubo, Tiger's Lust, an ability which caused Naruto's speed to double by sending chakra into his legs. The more chakra he sent into his legs, the longer the effect would last. He knew it was even hard for Guy to keep up with him, but the green-clad man had yet to remove his training weights, so of course Guy and Lee were actually faster than he was. Just not at the moment. He then sensed Guy's chakra signature coming in form behind him, and in response he gathered chakra into his throat and prepared a jutsu. He crouched to the floor where he had Guy in his sights. Okami Piasu Unarai, wolf-piercing howl, said Naruto as he unleashed a loud howl that sounded like a bell ringing and a wolf howling at the same time, where a beam of chakra surrounded by sound wave-like rings which hit Guy in the chest and truly sent him hurtling backwards. Naruto hefted himself off the ground and waited for his enemies to attack. He didn't have to wait long as both Guy and Lee were reunited as Lee had finished, regaining his energy for the final attack. Naruto prepared himself for the worst because he believed that they were going to unleash what he thought they would unleash. Lee, let's show the world the power of our youth. Let's get our blood pumping, and adrenaline coursing through our bodies, the power of youth is flowing through us," proclaimed Guy to the heavens, which made Naruto sweat drop at the terrible speech. "Let's open the Hachiman Lee," said Guy, to which the green-clothed youth nodded. Both Guy and Lee crouched down a little and crossed their arms in front of their faces and closed their eyes, ready to open the gates. First gate, Kaiman, gate of opening. Second gate, Human, gate of healing. Third gate, Seiman, gate of life. Fourth gate, Shomon, gate of pain. Fifth gate, Taman, gate of limit. Sixth gate, Kaiman, gate of view. Release, yelled Guy and Lee together as both unlocked the sixth gate of the Hachiman. And Naruto perceived the after effects of such a thing. He had only seen it once, but it was enough to remember it. Guy and Lee's skin turned a dark red, and their eyes went completely white in color. They had bulging veins around their eyes, and both had a green aura around them. Naruto knew it wasn't chakra, but instead sweat evaporating at an alarming rate because of the intense heat of the body's temperature. Naruto steeled himself for what was about to transpire, though he had the strange feeling that it wasn't going to be good. And in a flash, both Lee and Guy disappeared. Naruto barely had enough time to bring up his arms to block the single punches from both of them, and his arms felt like they nearly broke in two as the sheer strength exerted in the punches. But Naruto, even though he could predict their attacks with the Sharingan, didn't mean that his body could keep up with them. An unfortunate limitation to the Sharingan. Both parties were skidding across the ground from the speed of Guy and Lee, who followed up on their attack by punching him again, but in the face, and since Naruto's arms were preoccupied, he couldn't defend against such attacks. But the two Konoha nin weren't done, as they repeatedly pounded him with their fists. They both kicked Naruto away, who was helpless. He could defend himself, not form strong and fast taijutsu such as those. Guy jumped in the air while Lee stayed on the ground to prepare for battle. Naruto looked up to see Guy punching the air, where from the friction and speed lit up into fire. Naruto, amazed at such speed, used the Tora-Yakubo to increase his speed so he could dodge the flaming attacks of the Asa Kyujaku, Morning Peacock. Lee took advantage of Naruto's averted attention, where he slid across the ground and toppled Naruto over, but the blonde didn't land on the ground, but instead he felt his foot being grasped by Lee and was made into the youth's toy as he was slammed again and again against the hard ground. He couldn't count how many times his face smashed against the ground. He then saw Lee threw him across the ground, where his face was literally boring into the dirt and earth. Guy came flying down from above and rammed his knees into Naruto's back, where the Sharingan wielder coughed hoarsely from the action. He had to give credit where it was due. Not even he, with all his training and might, could open the Hachiman, because Madara didn't know who to open the Hachiman, so therefore it wasn't something the old goat could teach. But still, to open 6 of the 8 gates was an astonishing feat, and how Guy and Lee worked seamlessly together, he wondered if Madara and him could be something like that. Well, that was just wishful thinking on his part, since the old goat was officially dead. He turned his sore body over to see Guy and Lee preparing one of the combination jutsu, obviously involving the Hachiman. He smirked, knowing something that Guy and Lee didn't. "Lee, use that combo," yelled Guy, where he got an enthusiastic shout from Lee. Both Guy and Lee jumped high into the air, high enough for Naruto to look like an ant. Guy grabbed Lee by his legs and started somersaulting in the air, spinning like a wheel until they became nothing but a spinning blur. And suddenly Guy let Lee go, who shouted at the name to the jutsu. "Ultimate springtime of youthfulness, shower of holy radiance, body slam," roared Lee as he body slammed Naruto into the ground, where a large beacon of light made of youthful energy was emitted from the spot Lee hit. Neji, who was running through the forest, saw the large light with his Byakugan. No, they must have used that technique. "Guy-sensei, Lee," yelled Neji as he was almost to their location. After the jutsu's effects had dispersed, a large dust cloud was created to shroud untrained, as when the dust dispersed they saw Lee standing over the broken remains of Ryuyoke's, whose eyes were white and spit was oozing from the corner of his lip. The ground was literally torn apart as many rock spires were created, standing tall among the debris. The effects of opening the 6th gate of the Hachiman had now worn off, and Lee reverted back to his original appearance, but with scuff marks over his body, and he was panting heavily and looked about ready to drop on his knees. Guy landed on the earth a bit away from where Lee was. Although they couldn't capture Ryuyoke's without killing him, but still they had reduced the Akatsuki to 9 members instead of 10, which was good. Lee was walking away from Rya's near mutilated corpse, walked atop one of the unearthed rock spires, which allowed him a good view of the surrounding area. "Guy-sensei, we did it!" shouted Lee, who pumped both of his fists into the air with joy. "That's right, Lee, nothing can overcome the power of one's youth. When we get back to the village, I'm treating you to medium spiced curry rice and we're going to be tripling our training regime. Spoke Guy proudly over the amazing power of his student. Guy heard some rustling in the bushes and saw Neji burst forth from the tree line which was a bit away. "Ah Neji, have you come to celebrate your youth with Lee and I?" asked Guy happily. Lee too smiled at the prospect, and he believed that Neji was also worthy of praise. Guy-sensei Lee, it was all minus, but his words were cut off as soon as a black sword pierced Lee's chest, causing blood to explode from the wound. Lee didn't say anything other than gasp as blood spurted from his mouth and his eyes were wide and horror-stricken. He looked down to see the black katana jutting out of his chest, which was currently drenched in his own blood. He looked over his shoulder to an unharmed Ryuyoke's holding the sword from its hilt. The green boy looked over his shoulder, some more to see the mutilated corpse which faded into nothing. "Ji Genjutsu," gasped Guy. They were in a genjutsu the entire time, fighting nothing but an apparition. When did he? They never looked into his eyes. That's when it came to Guy. When he pointed at them, which he actually thought he was taunting them, he in fact placed both Lee and Guy into a genjutsu. If a person's skill with genjutsu was masterful enough, they could place someone in a genjutsu just by pointing at them. Itachi Uchiha was capable of such a thing. Lee coughed up more blood which broke Guy's attention. Neither Neji or him moved, or rather they couldn't, since Neji was in horror, and so was Guy, and he also couldn't move, since he used the Hachimen which left his body exhausted. Lee turned his attention back to Guy and Neji, where he fell to his knees, his eyes showing death in them. "Jigai-sensei. Was I a splendid shinobi?" stuttered Lee, which turned out to be his last words as Naruto pulled out the Tonbagari, and then thrusted it through Lee's neck, spilling blood all over the ground. Naruto yanked out the Tonbagari again, and maneuvered to Lee's side, where the Sharingan wielder decapitated him with a swift stroke of the sword. Guy watched on in horror, as his greatest and most loved student's head came rolling down to his feet. But how could this happen, and to Lee no less? His mind was breaking. Was everything he did just worthless? How could he let? He was broken from his thoughts as Naruto spoke up. "This is what happens when you fill others' minds with promises that they can be great despite what limits them." He could not accept the fact that he could never be anything great other than what he was. "A splendid shinobi," spat Naruto as if poison in his mouth. "Ninjutsu is the basis for all shinobi. If one cannot perform even the simplest ninjutsu, then they can never call themselves shinobi. Dreams don't come true in this world. The strong prevail and the weak perish. It's the natural order." The sooner he learned that, the better off he would be. Guy couldn't do anything other than soak in his words. Was he right? Were we defined to be what they were meant to be? Before Guy could do anything, Neji raced ahead of him with a look of rage apparent on his visage. Naruto quirked his eyebrow at this and was unafraid of the incoming Hyuga. But he had spent enough time here. Conan would surely be wondering what happened to him. When Neji was close enough, Naruto kicked him in the face, sending him back onto the ground near the unmoving and unresponsive Might Guy. Believing he wasted enough time on idiots, Naruto transformed his body into a cloud of bats. Neji, who watched from his spot on the ground, started beating his fist against the earth and screaming at the top of his in agony, for he had just watched another of his friends die. While Guy, who was deadened at the sight, did nothing at all. All she could hear was the beating of he rain against the cold metal of her room. It always rained in Amigakure no matter what. Unless Nagato made it stop raining, but the dark, gloomy clouds still remained. She was worried for her partner, even though she had no reason to be. She should have had more faith in his abilities. He had the 7 techniques of the Kamionaneo, so he must have been fine. But when she thought about him, her heart would hurt for some reason. She just couldn't help herself. She just had to be worried. No, she needed to be worried. Currently looking at the wet balcony of the apartment in Amigakure, she could do nothing but wait for him to land on that balcony, where she would greet him and be reassured by his presence. Although she had no idea how long she had to wait for one person. Nagato already knew she was in the village when the rain touched her body. It was his secret spy network, where he could monitor anything and everything in the industrialized village. Besides, his eyes were waiting for him. Over the past 2 months, Conan was unsure of her relationship with Ryuyoke's. At first they resented each other, then they could tolerate being in the same room. Then it sprouted into an acquaintance kind of relationship, and now they were friends. At least that's what she thought it was, but now she couldn't describe it. I didn't believe words could describe what she was feeling. She was just uncertain. Uncertain about a lot of things. Her body perked up when she saw something on the balcony. However, it was not what she wanted at all. The air on her balcony began to distort itself, and begin to swirl around, like a vortex, and from that spiral came a masked face, which instantly set Conan on edge. She knew about this person from her partner? She unsealed the Shiromakaran from her turquoise seal ready to combat Toby. She noted that he had changed his clothing for something more battle-oriented. He now had a new mask which appeared to be made of strong materials, which wouldn't break easily. The mask was white with a purple tint that covers the upper half of Obito's head with a design that resembled the Jubi's eye from Legends, consisting of a ripple pattern with 3 tomo around the center with 2 of the tomo acting as eye holes. He also donned clothing the Uchiha clan's traditional clothing from the Clan Wars era. The attire consisted of a pair of black pants and gloves with a white form-fitting shirt worn underneath it. Over it he wore a purple high-collared long-sleeve cloak that split down the lower half at the front with a purple obi tied around his waist with a purple belt. To Conan he looked even more dangerous than before. She slipped into her kenjutsu stance ready to fight the man if need be. However, Obito chuckled at the scene, finding it amusing. "You can put that away. I'm only here to talk," spoke Obito without betraying emotion but with a hint of aggressiveness. However, Conan did not back down and just stared at him with ice-cutting eyes. He sighed tiredly, seemingly bored by the display. "Like I said, I only want to talk." "Why would anyone want to talk with a liar?" stated Conan aggressively. However, Obito chuckled once again. "So he told you who I really am?" "Not surprising," continued Obito. "Everything he told you was the truth. That Ryu is a very truthful person. Wouldn't you agree?" Conan didn't say anything other than narrow her eyes at the man. "My name is Obito Uchiha. I was a student of the Yondaime Hokage, a shinobi born into the Uchiha clan and supposed to have died long ago during the Third Shinobi World War," spoke Obito with utter surety and authority. "However, do you know the name of your partner?" questioned Obito, which made Conan raise her eyebrow in curiosity. "Does that matter?" snarled Conan. Yes it does. How can you call me a liar when you yourself were lied to?" stated Obito as he started to pace around Conan. "What are you insinuating?" growled/asked Conan. "What would you say if I told that Ryu Yokaze is in actuality someone who is supposed to be dead?" Conan's blank face eased itself into a confused. "I mean, yeah, Ryu was like over 100 years old, but he never died, so how was he supposed to be dead?" "Continue," bit back Conan, which made Obito smirk behind his mask. "Well, you see, years ago Ryu met his unfortunate end at his friend's hands. It was a sad day for some but quite a monumental day for the people and shinobi of Konoha. His real name is in fact famous around the world, but also he was one of your former targets. Naruto Uzumaki," explained Obito in a high and mighty fashion. Conan's eyes widened to ghastly proportions. Of course there was a resemblance, but Conan had brushed it off, believing Naruto was dead. It was just impossible. If he is Naruto Uzumaki, then how is he alive? Zetsu confirmed he was dead, so how? She stopped her questions when his face contorted in surprise. Zetsu must have withheld the information or deemed it useless. "That is what I don't know myself, but Uzumaki have the life force of cockroaches. You just can't seem to kill them as they always get back up," continued Obito. Everything Conan knew about her partner was false. Did he forge everything about himself? Was it all smoke? Smoke, since she couldn't see anything other than the blackness. It didn't matter right now. He lied about everything. You think he's just going to trust when you had just met? Spoke Obito, still pacing around her. Conan lowered the Shiromakaran and looked down at the floor. "But he," said Conan, trying to find the right words. "Come on, Conan, all you have to do is look into your past, and you'll find the answer," said Obito. "Don't you remember all those people who doubted?" Obito placed Conan under a genjutsu to influence her more. And she could see all the people who doubted her and put her down while growing up and when she was an adult. "What about all the other things you sacrificed?" continued Obito, where images of Conan's parents and friends and everything else she had done, which was for the good of the Akatsuki. But when she looked back on those sacrifices, it made this melancholic feeling wash over her. "Don't forget Yahiko," stated Obito, where a visage of Yahiko appeared, which made Conan's breath hitch a little at the seeing the man she loved standing before her. Now that was a hard-working man. He'd sacrifice anything to attain his dream of world peace. All those times your food was taken and the times the men would beat you, he'd come to your aid, not caring if his own life was at stake. Shame. All that hard work didn't amount to nothing but a bloodied kunai in his friend's hands and a dream that never made it off the front porch of your hideout. Naruto isn't like Yahiko, he would sacrifice anything and anyone if it meant furthering his plans, he'd kill his old friends if it meant he could continue his plans. You're just his pawn, a piece on the board, which can be sacrificed with a snap of one's fingers. Mouthed Obito. He never cared for you, he just cares about the useful part of you. Conan looked down at the Shiromakaran no Tsurugi, her teko and her hair clips. If he didn't care, then why mind? She was about to ask the question before Obito already gave her the answer? He's been manipulating you from the start. He gave you those things so to coerce you, to make you trust him, when he would later break that trust when you proved useless. As if he would care about you. Continued Obito. But Yahiko and Nagato, you can give them all they ever wanted. All they would ever achieve. It's simple really, but so long as Naruto is walking around your two friends will never achieve their dream. Stated Obito, making Conan lose her sense of understanding. Obito walked behind Conan and grasped her hand in his, the hand that was holding the Shiromakaran. And he whispered in her ear. All you have to do is kill Naruto. Conan widened her eyes. Kill him as in take his life. She had killed before, but she was unsure if she could do it. Whether for real or not. It will be easy. With this sword that can shatter any defense, you can break the Susanoo and stab him in the back. That's all you have to do. Obito removed his hand from Conan's, and when the blue-haired woman turned around she was met with an empty apartment. To achieve Yahiko and Nagato's dream, she had to kill Naruto.